it was nice. It was doing it in the background. And in fact, now my investments have grown faster because those dividends were invested right away instead of hitting my bank account and then taking a while for me to decide what I was going to invest in or how often or how quickly, because it is just a kind of set and forget strategy in the background.
The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash Etchman from Tash Invest and Ana Christina from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us. Welcome back. Today's episode, we're talking about dividends, reinvesting dividends, and what we do with our own dividends. Before we kick it off, money win, loss of the week. Tash, what's yours?
I participated in some research last year and I just got a $50 voucher for it for Coles, which is fun. A researcher emailed me and asked me to be part of her, I think it's a PhD maybe, and then offered me a voucher to do it. So free money, which is fun.
Amazing. I used to be a researcher, so I used to always give out vouchers to people. So I love that because it incentivizes people to answer your questions and get it done. So that's great.
Yeah. I feel like I did the interview so long ago and I'd forgotten about the voucher offer, and I only got the email recently and I was like, oh, I forgot about this. How fun.
Yeah. Speaking of long time ago, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I definitely talked about how mad I was that Microsoft wouldn't reimburse me the $150 for Microsoft Office. And I think I mentioned on the podcast multiple times how I went back and forth, sending emails, having to go through my bank so that they can justify paying me back that thing. I spent hours emailing back and forth, hours being on customer service. And I was like, this is not worth it. And just like a couple weeks ago, I saw $150 be reimbursed in my bank account. So it finally went through, but this is months of going back and being so pedantic about getting this money back. Persistent. Yeah, persistent about it. So was it worth it? The hourly rate to get $150 back when I spent countless hours of documenting? Probably not. Do I feel good about it? Absolutely.
So was it worth it for you? Yes.
Well, yeah. I think it goes back to my frugal ways. I don't want to lose any dollar, right? Like they should have reimbursed me, but they made me jump through the hoops for it. I had to go through my bank to ask them to reimburse me. So they had to, anyway, so it's not worth my time. Absolutely not worth my time. But some habits die hard.
Yes, it's good to be in the frugal mindset, I think, overall, and be looking for those little things. Because if you start letting too many things slide, they can really add up.
Yeah, for sure.
So for today's episode, I've been wanting to talk about dividend reinvestment plans for a while. I'm sure we've mentioned them really early on in some of our first episodes. But whenever I share a dividend post, I share that I get them paid into my bank account. And the number one question is, why don't you use a dividend reinvestment plan? And often I see pop up that Scott Pape from the Barefoot Investor recommends them. So obviously they must be a good idea all the time. So starting off with, let's go through what dividends are in case you're not across it.
So what are dividends? Dividends are essentially a portion of a company's profits distributed to its shareholders. So this is an income paid to the shareholder, meaning that you will be taxed on this income. So essentially, if you're owning a part of a company or an ETF, you will receive a dividend. And not all companies and ETFs provide dividends. So just be aware of that. There are a lot of them that do not pay you an income. So this cash can then be saved, or it can be spent, or it can be reinvested automatically, which is often referred to as a dividend reinvestment plan. You can also manually reinvest it yourself. So let's just dive deeper into it. What is a dividend reinvestment plan?
Very simply, it automatically reinvests your dividends to purchase more shares instead of receiving it in cash. So shares are automatically purchased at the current market price, and you sometimes might even get a discount.
So how do you set this up in Australia? You essentially can set up by enrolling in a DRP, so your dividend reinvestment plan. You log into your share registry account. You use the details provided by your broker when you purchase the shares, and then you can opt into the DRIP. So you find the DRIP section under your holdings. I call it DRIP, but other people call it DRP, sorry. So you can say both for the dividend reinvestment plan. And you can then choose your reinvestment preferences. So you can decide whether to reinvest all of it or a portion, and then you confirm and you save.
If you're not sure who your share registry is, you can try searching in your email account if they've sent you emails. It might be Computershare or Link Market are the two biggest ones. If not, it might be those letters you've gotten in the mail. So you might have to go through your mail and be like, oh, where is my possible share registry later? And find there's usually a number that you can use to try and log in. It might be your email address, but it can be a bit of admin to get into the share registry, but it's worth it to get everything set up and organized. It also is a place where you can opt out of dividend reinvestment plans. There are some ETFs now which are a bit annoying and automatically enroll you into the dividend reinvestment plan. So DHHF does that, which is not ideal, I don't think. But yeah, you can go on and unenroll yourself from that.
So there are some pros and cons of using the DRP, the DRIPs. So the pros are automation, right? They're automatically reinvested. Your dividends basically are reinvested without you having to action them or do anything about it. There's no brokerage fees. So often there's no transaction fee for reinvesting them. You can sometimes receive a discount, so a discounted price through the DRP, and it prevents the temptation to spend your dividends. So it can be kind of like a forced savings, forced investment plan.
Yeah, it's good to not have to make that decision when it automatically happens in the background and you're not actively deciding, oh, do I spend or save them? It just happens for you. So that is definitely a big pro. Some of the cons though, it can make figuring out capital gains tax a bit more tricky in the future, because instead of maybe investing 12 times a year, you'll be investing 12 times a year, and then you'll also have these little random amounts when your dividends are reinvested too. So it can be a bit more tricky to work out how much you've bought all your shares for. But if you've got a good accountant, they should be able to do that for you anyway. Dividends are still taxed even if they're reinvested. So as you start growing your dividends, you're going to have to start setting aside extra money to pay the tax on them, especially if you're not getting them paid to you in cash. There's a lack of control, so you can't decide to reinvest them at a different time or reinvest them into a different ETF once you've set it up. And something else to note, and a really important consideration, is on the ASX, you can only buy whole shares, not parts of shares, which means it might take years to accumulate enough dividends to buy a full share, especially for those higher priced ETFs. So for example, if one share costs $96 with a dividend of almost 85 cents per share, you'd need 114 shares or just under $11,000 invested for those dividends to be reinvested for you. So for compounding to work, your money needs to be invested and making more money, not just sitting in an account somewhere earning no interest for what could potentially be years. So just something to be mindful of. If you're only investing maybe $500 or $1,000 into an ETF, it might take you a while for those dividends to accumulate enough to actually buy a whole share.
You can also reinvest your dividends without using a dividend reinvestment plan. And I think, Tash, you actually do this as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I get my dividends paid into my bank account, but then I just add them on to my next investment amount. So I'll be like, oh, instead of investing $1,000, I'll just transfer them into my Pearler account and they'll be automatically reinvested for me, which is great.
And why do you do this?
Because I want control and I want to be able to change my mind. If I decide to buy a different ETF, I don't want them kind of locked up in a dividend reinvestment plan. And also my first ETF I ever bought was IVV, which got really expensive. It was like $200 a share when I first bought it and climbed to like $500 before they did the share split. So I wasn't making enough in dividends to actually ever buy me a full share, which is a bit annoying. And to opt out, you often don't actually get a refund. They'll just donate the money to charity instead, which is a bit annoying. So I don't want to get stuck in that kind of like locked up system again, where it's almost you feel like you have to leave it there to make enough to make the most of it. You kind of feel a bit trapped. So I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for the longest time, I had some of my shares reinvested, and that's because I didn't realize that they were reinvested at first when I set it up. And all of a sudden I was like, man, I hold so many shares in this specific ETF, which was fun because it aligned with my values. But when I changed some of my investing strategy, I then had to go in, and this was actually after a conversation with you about it. I went into my share registry and was like, oh, the reason I have so much of that is because I've been reinvesting as well, along with investing into that specific ETF. So because I changed my investing strategy, similarly, I actually have a couple accounts. So one of my accounts gets paid into my bank account, and then I kind of bundle it with more cash and reinvest it in a different ETF. So because I hold multiple ETFs and multiple dividends get paid out, and I don't want it in all of those multiple ETFs, I just want to invest it in one ETF. I kind of bundle all that cash together and then reinvest it. And then I have another investment account that I use for my kids, and that's invested, or that those dividends get paid out straight into my Pearler cash account, and then that gets reinvested with their cash in their specific little ETF. And that's that.
Amazing. It's also fun just seeing the numbers land in your bank account as well. Like it can be a very long journey and it can feel really far away. So it's a nice little reminder of being like, oh, I'm actually making money. This is fun.
Yeah, I posted on social about like, you should actually celebrate any win that you have. And I had so many people being like, I got 56 cents or I got $50 or I got 110 and it's the most I've ever gotten in my life from dividends. So it is exciting to celebrate those little wins, even if it is a couple cents, even if it's not $1 yet. The thing is, your money is making money and your money would not have been making money had you not been investing, right?
Yeah. And it'll only go up, hopefully, if you keep investing.
Yeah, exactly.
Asterisk, asterisk. It might not because investing, but hopefully.
Yeah, asterisk, asterisk. So why would you consider DRP or not?
I think it's really good if someone wants that completely set and forget strategy and they don't want to be tempted by the cash in their bank account at all. Like, it is easy to just set and forget it and to leave it away and to watch it grow. That's really fun. It's also, there are some pros there, like you might not get charged brokerage fees for it. There might be a discount. So if there's a specific reason why you want to use one, then great, it might be working for you.
And especially if it's a specific ETF that you're happy to invest in, you were going to invest in anyway. Similarly, when I had it set on, it was for an ETF that I was happily investing in and therefore growing my share of that portfolio within that ETF. So I was happy with that. And then when my strategy changed, I no longer wanted to do that. So it shifted. So it was nice. It was doing it in the background. And in fact, now my investments have grown faster because those dividends were invested right away instead of hitting my bank account and then taking a while for me to decide what I was going to invest in or how often or how quickly, because it is just a kind of set and forget strategy in the background.
Yeah, definitely if you're someone who gets a little bit overwhelmed by all the choices, like I even go through phases like that where you're like, I don't want to make another decision. Like, I'm tired now. I don't want to do it. So that might be a great strategy to set that up. It's also for individual companies as well. So I just had a quick Google to see some of them. It says that Fisher & Paykel offer a discount of 3%. So maybe if you're investing in an individual company for some reason, you might be like, oh, I want to reinvest my dividends because I can get them a discount of 3%, which is pretty good. A final reminder here though, while there are pros and cons to both, there's no wrong decisions. Like, there are pros and cons, but like, you're still investing your dividends or you're still getting them as cash. Like, you're still moving forward positively, which is great. I think we can get so caught up on the decision of, should I do this or should I not? When like, you can do one and then you can opt out. You can opt in, change your mind. You can get them in cash and actually be like, oh no, I want to try a dividend reinvestment plan for one of my ETFs. Like, you can figure out what works for you that way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I used to have a dividend reinvestment plan turned on and then I turned it off. And who knows what happens in the future? I might turn it back on again if it aligns with my investing strategy and what I want to do, because we do want to automate our investing. We do want to make it easier for ourselves. We don't want to spend time out of the market if we can have our money working for us. So find what works for you, stick to it, and you can always change your mind.
Yes, you can always change your mind. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invest or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative, 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative, 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.